Well, let's get some comment now from the business sector, what they're expecting. There have been big conversations at NEDLAC. Also, what do we need to get the economy going? Sandile Zungu is the president of the Black Business Council. Mr. Zungu, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. I know you've been involved in conversations with people. You know people who know people. What are you expecting from the president tonight?
Thank you, Steve, for having me. We expect the president to take the country back to where it was prior to the 26th of March, where there is social distancing, there is application of sanitization, but economic activity is cautiously normal. That's where it needs to be. The international borders need to be open, most particularly for regional travel. And what may be limiting us is that when we land in some countries, they may still not have sufficient comfort that South Africans can land there without going to quarantine. But those are the risks that we have to live with, but the borders should be open, especially outwardly.
The chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee for COVID-19, Professor Salim Abdul Karim, of course, I think that man has probably been interviewed more than anyone else over the last little while. He suggested earlier this week we could go beyond level 1 to a new normal. You seem to be agreeing with him. You seem to be suggesting that's on the cards, beyond level 1?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's just that level 1, level 0, someone has got to own up to the categorization. But what we expect from business is that pretty much a new normal, where people will have to wear face masks at all times, especially in public places, have to observe social distance, because the virus is still in our midst. It's not tired of us. We may be tired of it, but it's certainly in our midst, and we have to be absolutely sure that the second wave does not destroy us. So to that extent, we are satisfied, since from all the numbers that are coming out, that we've reached a peak and on a decline. The numbers are still going up because it's a cumulative number, but the rate of the spread is actually decreasing, which is what we look at. And people are suddenly gaining new confidence that they can go back to commercial activity. That's the kind of confidence we need to rebuild our economy.
Well, confidence is really important. We need some sort of economic recovery plan as well. I'm sure you've been involved in some of the big economic conversations. Are you expecting some announcements on that tonight?
The president will obviously inform the nation when he is ready to announce. I will be very surprised if he is ready tonight, especially after having met with him at NEDLAC just yesterday. There's still quite a lot of hoops to be covered before the matters are finalized, and we are satisfied that the consultations and the discussions are headed in the right direction. He may give an indication that we need to prepare ourselves for an infrastructure-led, investment, and for the kind of measures that stimulate the confidence of the investors as well as the consumer. Those are kind of things that are in broad terms. Are the messages that he must not miss an opportunity to outline even tonight.
I mean, there's a lot coming with the economy. We've got a medium-term budget policy statement in a couple of weeks as well to wait for from the finance minister. Perhaps from what you're saying, we're going to have to wait for that. But I do want to ask you what kind of economic intervention we need. Infrastructure is one thing. Deep reform, which, I mean, Mr. Zungu, you and I have been discussing for many years, is something else we need. There's no point in having a stimulus package without reform.
Structural reforms are very critical, are fundamental to a new kind of economic order that we yearn for. Without those structural reforms, it's going to be almost like we've missed a crisis. We have not taken advantage of it. South Africa needs to move into a new space where in the short term, we need to definitely throw in all our weight and effort towards those sectors and industries which are scalable in terms of employment creation. There are many low-hanging fruits. We may talk about tourism, infrastructure-led projects that are shovel-ready and that involve private sector participation, because we need to mobilize private capital for this. Otherwise, the fiscus is very obviously stretched and stressed. The only way you can really stimulate the economy is when the private sector is seen, not only invited, but is seen to be involved. And even matters of capability of the state, can only be addressed when capacity that resides within the private sector and the skills that reside among ordinary South Africans are mobilized to assist the state to implement, because implementation seems to be a perpetual, a perennial bugbear of South Africa.
It can seem, Sandile, that, this conversation going on and on, nothing seems to change. We had the finance minister's hallelujah moment, as he called it, back at the start of all of this. All of those conversations seems to have disappeared. They are, frankly, and I'm sure you'll know this, people are beginning to lose hope. Are you seeing signs of hope in some way?
I don't think so. Quite honestly, Steve, I wish I could agree with that narrative, but I don't. Because even in the midst of COVID, there are some really wonderful things that we are seeing happening. And we are seeing, focus on tourism. We are seeing focus on SMME. Maybe it's not enough, but the noise is in the right place. Some geographies, some economies don't have the luxury of people putting plans on the table. They just don't have plans. They just bumble along from one crisis to another without plans. Our problem is that we've got many plans. We don't implement properly. But hey, it's a much better space than having no plans whatsoever.
Sandile Zungu, do appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. The President of the Black Business Council.